Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the March 30th Education Instruction Subcommittee. Madam Chairman, take the roll.
Representative Dixie.
Secretary.
Representative Harris. Here. Representative Haston. Representative Hicks.
Here.
Representative McKenzie.
Here.
Chairman Reagan.
Here.
Representative Warner.
Here.
Representative Weaver. Chair Lady Moody. Here. Chairman Sapicki. Chairman Sapicki, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Are any personal orders of the committee? Chairman Dixie, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to recognize one of our school board members, Kristen Buggs. She's from the Metro Davidson County, so thank you for being here.
We're good, okay. Thank you for that, Chairman Dixie. We've got a lot of people coming and going on this committee, so we got to make sure we keep a quorum as we move forward. We're going to get right into this. We got a full calendar here. I know we got a lot of people who want to present here. We're just going to go through the bill, and bear with us if you would. House Bill 479 by Leader Lamberth is now off notice. House Bill 647 by Chairman Faison is off notice. That leaves us with House Bill 795 by Chairman Howell. Chairman Howell, you're recognized. Motion? Motion. Second? Do I have a second? Second. Mr. Chairman Howell, you are recognized. Do you have an amendment, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a verbal amendment if the chair and the committee would permit it.
Okay. Give me 1 second. Let me get there, sir.
I'm sorry?
Go. Give me 1 second. Let me get there.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have a normal amendment on your bill, sir? No?
I do not believe so. I have, the code that I have is 5810, but that makes the bill.
That'd be an amendment? Do I have a motion on the amendment? Motion. Second? Second. You have your first and second. Let's put this on the bill as it makes the bill.
Yes.
Without objection. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Amendment 5810 is on the bill. Mr. Chairman, you are recognized.
Thank you. There is a section in this amendment, Mr. Chairman. Section 1, if the committee would allow it, I would like to offer a verbal amendment and remove Section 1 completely because it's not necessary. Okay. So Section 2 would make the bill.
Okay. You've heard the motion by the chairman. Is there a motion on that to remove Section 1? Motion. Second? Second. Thank you very much. Don't be afraid to speak up. It's okay. All those in favor of removing Section 1 of this bill and leaving Section 2, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Verbal amendment is on there. Mr. Chairman Howell, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As amended, this bill simply says that if the State Textbook Commission does not recommend CTE textbooks or any other instructional material in any given school year, that the LEA will have the permission to use those unused funds to purchase technology. That's what the bill does.
Committee, you have heard the amended bill and the language on it. Is there any questions for the sponsor? On seeing none, all those in favor of sending House Bill 795 to full Education Committee, say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. You're on the full committee, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And we'll roll all those amendments together. Next up is House Bill 884. Chairman Vaughn, you are recognized. We have a motion on the bill. Second? Second. There's a second.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you would indulge me for a moment. The TCA, this bill deals with charter amendments, or charter schools and charter enforcement. A public charter school should be accountable to the authorizer, to the LEA, for the purpose of ensuring compliance with the charter agreement and the requirements of this chapter. Authorizers shall enforce compliance with the requirements of this chapter. When a charter school is out of compliance, LEAs have one opportunity to bring them into, well, they have two. They can ask them nicely to come into compliance, or they can revoke their charter. That's it. They have no enforceable actions that can bring the charter into compliance. Shelby County school districts have a lot of issues with this. They've got over, there's dealing with ESL violations, they've got 40 problems, 40 examples of their charters not being in compliance. They have education licensure issues in 25 of their charters. They have 19 evaluations for exceptional education students in their charters, but yet all they can do is ask them to please bring yourself into compliance, or they terminate their agreement. This bill had sought to remedy that situation by putting penalties in there of a little bit more tangible nature, to where somebody has to come to the table and improve their school. Unfortunately, we've had some issues with working some items out with stakeholders. So what I'd like to do is, with your permission, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to take this bill off notice with the assurance that you'll see it back next winter to try to get to where we can bring some of these rogue charters into compliance.
Thank you, Chairman. I believe you'll find that support here coming back next year. You've heard the request to sponsor. We will take this off notice.
Thank you so much.
Next up is House Bill 10103 by Ogles is off notice. Next up is House Bill 0837 by Sparks. We will roll that to the heel of the calendar. Next up is House Bill 1570 by Cochran. We'll roll that one to the heel. From what I understand, House Bill 1548 is off notice. No. He's going to present it? Okay. That's by Representative Cochran. We'll roll that to the heel. House Bill 1513 by Cochran. We'll roll to the heel. Next up is House Bill 1077 by Leatherwood. Representative Leatherwood, you are recognized. You have a motion? Second? Representative, you have a first and a second. Give me a second to get there.
And thank you. This
Do you have an
committee
amendment,
just
sir?
keeps moving right along. Y'all set a good pace here.
Do you have an amendment, sir?
I do have an amendment,
5792.
5792.
Motion
Yes,
to add
sir.
that to the bill? Second? Let's put it on the bill for you, Mr. Representative. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Amendment 5792 is on the bill. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and committee. Wanted to go ahead and put the amendment on there so everybody would know we're not actually talking about the Baker Center at UT, but what we're talking about is the retention legislation which we passed in the special session. And what we were attempting to do here with this amendment is to just tweak that a little bit. House Bill 1077, it would offer more data points specific to reading when we're making those retention decisions. It also recognizes there are other forms of reading disorder that could impact a student's ability aside from just dyslexia. However, realized that was large and comprehensive legislation that we did pass in special session. These are complex issues, and as I understand, there is a will to put a lot of these issues together and look at them over the summer. So with that, I would like to see these issues included in a summer study. So.
Members, you've heard the motion to send this to summer study. Do I have a motion to send this bill to summer study for further consideration? Motion. Sir, second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Yes, sir. We'll see you in summer study.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee.
Let the record reflect that Chairman Weaver is back. Chairman Reagan has left. We still have a quorum. Don't go anywhere. Next up is House Bill 1460 by Representative Hakeem. Do I have a motion? There's a motion and a second. Representative Hakeem, do you have an amendment on this bill?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Is it it's untimely filed, is that correct, sir?
I believe that would be correct, sir.
Is it drafting code 4805?
What I've been instructed, Mr. Chairman, is asked as Senate Bill 1101. For the motion.
It'll be drafting code 4805.
Okay, all right, sir.
We have an untimely filed amendment here, committee. Motion to consider, is there a second? We have a second. All those in favor of considering Amendment 4805, say aye. Aye. Opposed? We will add that to the bill.
Yes, sir.
Let's put it on the bill so we get us in the proper position. Do I have a motion to add this bill to this amendment to the bill? Is there a second? All those in favor of adding 4805, the amendment to the bill, say aye. Aye. Opposed? You're in the right position, sir. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. What this bill does is direct state education officials to establish a year-long, age-appropriate Black history and cultural curriculum, primarily for students in grades 5th and 8th grades. We would also mention that the bill, as redrafted by the amendment, requires our LEAs and public charter schools to start providing Black history and culture to our 5th and 8th graders beginning in 2025 and 26. And I have a lot of other detail, Mr. Chairman. I'd be willing to read.
It's your bill,
but-
sir.
Okay. If that is sufficient, I'm ready to attempt to answer the question, sir.
Okay. This amendment that we're adding was the one that the Senate added, I believe, to
Yes,
put it
sir.
in a more softer position.
Yes, sir.
With the LEAs. Are there any questions for the bill sponsor as the bill is amended? Without seeing none, I'll go ahead and we will take the vote. All those in favor of sending House Bill 1460 as amended to full education, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. You're on the full committee, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members.
Next up is House Bill 0429. Chairman Dixie?
Representative Chisholm asked could this be rolled to the Hill.
We will roll this one to the heel of the calendar. House Bill 1559 by Chairman Mitchell. Representative Mitchell, you are recognized, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is my annual ethics bill. It's a very simple bill. It just has to do with the voucher program in Tennessee. And
We need a motion.
okay.
Hold on, sir. Motion, have a second? Motion, a second. You have the floor.
as some of the new members may have seen, when we vote on the House floor, it's usually a quick process. I don't think the board's been open for 45 minutes for every vote we've had so far this year combined. But when we passed the voucher legislation in the General Assembly, it was open for more than 45 minutes. And that was to have a little extracurricular activity out on the balcony of the state capitol.
I know there's a discussion on this bill somewhere. Can you get to it pretty quickly?
Well, the discussion
without
of
the history lesson.
if vouchers are such a great idea, let's start all over and do it legally and without any corruption. And if the proponents of vouchers want to do it and want to do it without offering things up to members of the General Assembly to vote in favor of the piece of legislation, let's start all over and do it.
All right, you're going to be out of order right there. You've heard the presentation by the representative. Is there a motion on this bill? Is there a motion on the bill? Motion to approve. Is there a second? Okay. All those in sending this bill to the full Education Committee, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no? No? Sorry, sir. Have a nice day.
That's fine. Thank you.
Next up, we're going to go back everybody. Back to the future here, hold on. Yeah, 1570. We're going to go back. Representative Cochran has decided to join us today. House Bill 1570 by Representative Cochran. Do I have a motion? Second. You have a motion and a second. Do you have an amendment?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Drafting code?
That drafting code would be 005778.
That's what I have, 00578 committee. Does it make the bill?
Yes, sir.
Yes, it does. Motion on the amendment. Is there a second? There's a second. Let's put this on the bill to get it in the proper position. All those in favor of adding Amendment 5778 to the bill, say aye. Opposed, no. You're in the proper position, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And essentially what this bill does is before the Commissioner of Education changes any part of the formula used to calculate school or LEA performance goals, that has to be approved through the State Board of Education and through a working group, and that's kind of lined out in the bill who those representatives are in that working group. And Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes, sir.
I believe you and I discussed perhaps a change to that working group.
That's correct.
Would you like to do that now?
I'd like to ask if you'd be okay with adding your own verbal amendment to this.
I would be happy to.
Section 1B7, where it talks about teachers, add in from urban, suburban, and rural district.
Most definitely.
If you'll make that motion, I'd appreciate it.
I will make that motion that the verbiage that you just laid out there, that we add that to subsection B, section 7 there.
Thank you. And just to expand real quickly, to make sure that we have representation from all different kinds of districts in Tennessee, one urban teacher, one suburban teacher, and one rural teacher to be able to be on this committee. That's the motion that Representative Cochran is making. Chairman Dixie? When we get done? Okay. Let's add this verbal amendment on. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. You're in the proper position. Hold on one second. Chairman Dixie, you have a question?
Yes, Representative Cochran, I just had a quick question. What is the current process that's in place now?
Sure, and I believe that current process is driven more by the Department of Education without the, again, this puts in a little bit more stakeholder input. This is a bill that really, I believe, made it all the way to the House floor last year, and then, as so many bills did, kind of died as a result of COVID. But right now, there's a little bit more, there's more authority vested or that rests with the Department of Education. This puts it with the State Board of Education, and then it also, like I say, puts in that working group that works with the commissioner and the department to determine any type of changes there, any type of substantive changes.
Good. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Hearing none, we'll be taking the vote. As the bill amended, House Bill 1570 to move on to full education. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. You're on to full ed. And we need to take those amendments and roll them all together. Next up, Representative Cochran, House Bill 1548, sir. Okay, motion and second. You are in the proper position. Do you need an amendment on this?
No, Mr. Chairman. Actually, I'm going to take this one off notice.
You've heard that request. Without objection. House Bill 1548 is off notice. Next up, don't go anywhere, House Bill 1513, Representative Cochran. Motion and a second. You are, let me catch up to myself here. You are recognized. Do you have an amendment, sir?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Drafting code 6051.
006051 is what I have. Does it make the bill, sir?
Yes, sir.
Motion and a second. Let's put this on the bill, everybody. All those in favor of adding 006051 to the bill, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Is that all for the amendments?
Yes, sir.
You're in the proper position. Tell us about your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Y'all have gotten to see a lot of me today, and for that I apologize. I'll make this brief. This is the Textbook Transparency Act. I want to thank Chair Lady Weaver for working with me on this one, and she and I have worked on similar issues. But give you the short story. I didn't feel like there was an easy, an accessible place for approved textbooks and those waivered textbooks for the public to get eyes on those. And so what the current law says is during the adoption period, so there's a 90-day adoption period while the Textbook Adoption Commission is considering materials. Right now, the current law states that those materials have to be available in full online for that 90-day period. What this changes is that these materials in full will be available online for the entire lifetime of the textbook's adoption. So as long as this textbook is being used, the public should be able to find that and to find it in its full version. I mentioned in this legislation several times the state textbook depository, which I'll be honest with you is a resource that I did not know a lot about before drafting this legislation. But they really have a wealth of information, and so throughout this bill, an LEA and the state can be in compliance if they simply link to that textbook depository website, which already has a lot of this material. So that should be a great resource, and that's why the amendment takes off the fiscal note. There's no cost associated to the state. But with that, I'll pause for any questions.
Committee, you've heard the explanation on the bill as amended. Is there any questions for Representative Cochran? Upon hearing none, everybody ready to vote? Without objection, all those in favor of sending House Bill 1513 to the full ed as amended, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. You're on the full ed, sir.
Thank you, Chairman.
We're going to go back in time, and we're going to call up Representative Chisholm on House Bill 0429. Do I have a motion? Motion and a second. Let me get there real quick. Okay. No amendments on this bill, sir?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. You are in the proper position. You may go ahead and tell us about your bill.
Thank you, Chairman and Committee. I brought to you House Bill 429, and what this bill does, it creates a 5-member oversight committee to survey and inventory educational programs and materials being used to teach American history in public schools, and create a directive consultants who can share their knowledge of the role of African Americans have played in American history. It requires members of the committee to serve without compensation, but authorizes reimbursement for travel. I've got a chance to speak to many of you on the committee, and we've discussed the role that we've seen, the posture of African Americans in our public school curriculum. In our public school curriculum, in our current posture, when we talk about African Americans as it pertains to history, most of the time we briefly talk about slavery. We briefly talk about the civil rights movement of the 60s, and outside of that, we talk about entertainers and athletes. So with this bill, we want to create an oversight committee so that we can talk about some of the great people who've done great things, especially here in the state of Tennessee, where we have such a rich heritage, and we have a rich heritage of people of all colors doing so many great things. And with those things, we want to highlight some of the great contributions that African Americans have provided, not only to the state of Tennessee, but the United States and the world. With that, I renew my motion and take any questions.
Members, you've heard the presentation on the bill. Does anybody have any questions? I have a question for you, and some caution here to the committee here. I do support what you're trying to do here to make sure that we get maybe more substantive, tough word to say, African Americans that are recognized in our curriculums. I think there's a way to do that through amending the standards review that we do, that we're going to be coming up very shortly on social studies and science. If you wanted to add names or different types to the curriculum, I think that would be the proper place to do it. Creating an oversight committee would open the door for oversight committees on everything that we do, and I think we're getting into dangerous territory there. I would urge you and to work with this committee to help when standards review come up, to go ahead and work on that, to create maybe some changes to the Black history in the curriculum to make sure that we're actually teaching the Black history that we want to make sure our children understand. Committee, I would urge to make a motion to send this to general sub. Do I have a motion to send it to general sub? Is there a second? Motion is second to send it to general sub. All those in favor of sending it to general sub, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Ayes have it. It's off to general sub, sir. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Chairman and Committee.
Yes, sir. Next up is, well, he's got another time. Next up is going to be House Bill 0800 by Representative Griffey. Do I have a motion? A motion and a second. Representative Griffey, hold on, let me catch up to you. 800. It's item number 14. Let me get here. Is there an amendment on your bill, sir?
No, sir, I've decided to proceed without the amendment.
Okay, so we're running House Bill 0800 as unamended.
And, Mr. Chairman, if pleasure of the committee, I'd like to request a roll call vote on the bill, please.
Okay, you have a roll call vote.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, and
Hold
members
on,
of the...
hold on. You already got the motion and a second, right? Yeah, we already, right? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Chairman, go ahead, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, what this bill seeks to do is to limit the education regarding sex and other controversial social issues in schools to abstinence, sexual disease prevention, and teen pregnancy prevention when it comes to sexual matters or other controversial lifestyle choices. And the reason I do that is, you'll forgive me, but I don't want the state of Tennessee teaching my daughters about sex and lifestyle changes. And I think that view is probably shared by a number of parents throughout the state of Tennessee. The state of Tennessee is not allowed to teach my daughters Christian values that I think are important and they should learn. So I teach those at home. And so if those are not a part of the school curriculum, I don't see how LGBTQ and other issues and social lifestyle should be a part of the curriculum. And so what this bill simply seeks to do is to limit that so that neither side has an unfair advantage over the other regarding what's being taught in our schools to our children. And with that, I renew my motion.
Members, you've heard the explanation of this. Are there any questions for the sponsor? On hearing none, are you ready to vote on this? Without objection, all those in favor of sending House Bill 0800 to, oh, I'm sorry, my mistake, very sorry. Madam Secretary, take the roll.
Representative Dixie? No. Representative Harris? Absolutely no. Chairman Haston? Yes. Representative Hicks? Yes. Representative McKenzie? No. Chairman Reagan? Representative Warner?
Yes.
Representative Weaver? Yes. Chairlady Moody? Yes. Chairman Sapicki?
Yes.
Chairman Sapicki, you have 6 ayes and 3 nays.
Committee, Representative Griffey, you're on the full ed. Yes, sir. So we got that one's done. Okay. Next up is House Bill 1446 by Chairman Hicks. Do I have a motion? Second? Representative Hicks, you are in the proper position. I don't see an amendment. Is there an amendment on this?
No.
No, sir. Okay, you have the floor. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee. House Bill 1446, what this bill requires is the Department of Education to introduce career exploration opportunities to middle school students. The legislation also requires LEAs to advise middle school students about available CTE courses offered by their LEA and may align with the student's career aptitude assessment results. Introducing CTE in middle school provides a strong foundation for success for future work. Research shows that students who concentrate in a CTE area in high school are more likely to be employed and have a higher earning than students who did not pursue a CTE program. A lot of students learn from curiosity and persistence. When they are interested in CTE programs, they will have a better perspective on learning. Aptitude-based guidance aligns students' true talents with the best fit pathways and has proven to increase school engagement, graduation rates, and post-secondary success. Making sure students are exposed to more CTE courses and opportunities in middle school will help them identify careers that best fits their interests and their aptitudes. Also, House Bill 1446 improves gender, racial, and rural equity and diversity because all Tennessee students deserve the opportunity to explore their careers and interests through their high school coursework, including CTE opportunities. Starting this exploration in middle school is a strong foundation for success for future learning and life. That's the bill, and be happy to answer any questions.
Committee, you've heard the explanation on the bill. Are there any questions for the sponsor? Representative, I think it's an outstanding bill. This is your first one in our committee?
I've lost track. I think it is, yes.
We will see you in the full committee, I hope.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and vote on this. All those in favor of sending House Bill 1446 to the full education committee, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. You're on the full ed, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, committee.
We're going to jump ahead a little bit here. House Bill 1536 by Chairman Weaver is off notice, and House Bill 751 by Chairman Moody is off notice. Nodded head says yes. Next up is House Bill 1535 by Chairman Weaver. Have a motion? Motion. Second? Motion is second. Chairman Weaver, you are up.
I'm making my way.
Sure. Is there an amendment on this or no? Yes. Chairman Weaver, you have an amendment on this bill?
Yes, I do.
Drafting code 005389.
Correct.
Second? Motion and a second. Does this make the bill?
Yes, sir, it does.
Let's
Thank
put
you.
it on the bill committee. All those in favor of adding amendment 00539 to the bill, say aye. Opposed, no. You're in the proper position.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members. It's an honor to serve in the Education Committee. Since I've been here since 2009, I've served on education except for one term when I went to criminal justice. Those of us who serve on this committee are dedicated, and it is the workhorse committee because we really care about our kids. And so this piece of legislation cares about what's before our kids, the content that our children are reading. We have really had a focus, a radar actually, on textbooks and what our kids are reading. We've just heard about supplemental material and how more and more teachers are using it. And we want our teachers to be creative, and we want them to be able to use internet and go and pull things to make class more interesting. So what House Bill 1535, the spirit of this bill is to, and the mission is again content because it's critical. Society pays dearly when we have garbage in front of our kids. And it does take bravery, it does take courage that to protect our children, and we take moral courage to protect our children when it comes to policy, and that's another reason why I like to serve on this committee. So with that being said, we have a lot of supplemental materials out there, and there's a lot of bad stuff out there, and we don't want our children reading this. So what we've done is I have actually looked into my district, and I made a phone call to a individual that pretty much he's kind of like, I don't remember the name, but he's not like a supplemental police guy, but he's over instructional material. And basically has a set of eyes, and when a teacher has a question about supplemental material, brings it to this point, and the instructional, Mr. Towns, and he gives a thumbs up or thumbs down. And it's been working for them. It's locally driven, it's locally controlled. If a teacher sees something she's questionable about, if it's approved or not, then she brings it to the principal and gets basically a shield of protection from the principal. If the teacher maybe disagrees with the principal, then there's a process for her to appeal and go to the local school board. So again, this is locally driven. That's what we like. We like our locals to do what works for them. One thing I do want to point out, there's a process for approval, there's a process for appeal, and then in the bill, there's also a consequence for bad actors. Because in order for you to enforce something, you got to have a consequence. First of all, and also this bill also points out, again, I want to say, in no way does the spirit of this bill appear to be clumsy to a teacher. Again, I don't want to put handcuffs on our teachers. I want them to do what they love to do, and that's be creative and teach our children. So I don't want to use this as a clumsy process. Again, it protects our teachers. It puts checks and balances in place. It's a good process, keeps the controversial topics at bay. And I guess that's basically what it does. I can't think of anything else to say. If you have any questions, I will entertain those questions.
Committee, you've heard the sponsor's presentation. Are there any questions for Representative Weaver? Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Weaver. In terms of, I agree with everything that you said, but as I read this, it's all about Common Core.
It's not. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
If I'm looking at the amendment, and maybe I'm on the wrong bill, but I don't think I am. I mean, I understand what you're saying about supplemental materials, but I guess my question is, are they the only ones putting out bad material?
Chairman Weaver.
Well, we have passed legislation here that we stick with the Tennessee standards and no Common Core. So this, you don't want to have supplemental material that has Common Core on it in no way, shape, or form.
Representative McKenzie.
Thank you. And again, I guess I'm a bit confused. I don't, again, that wasn't during the time that I was serving in the assembly. But like I said earlier, all the things that you were saying, I was resonating with in terms of bad material. I guess my question to you, but as I read this, Common Core is the only thing that you're necessarily going after. I guess my question would be more so for Mr. Towns or someone at a school building level or district or LEA level. Wouldn't it just be better to have them vet the supplemental materials for bad content, not necessarily all Common Core? I'm not saying whether, I get the Assembly is deemed Common Core bad, but I don't think they have cornered the market on bad. So this piece of legislation seems to be targeted and limited.
Chair Lady Weaver.
Thus, the intent of this representative is yes not to embrace Common Core, because there's some supplemental material that has written on the bottom to watch out for that, but it also can be used as, for instance, here's an example. Sometimes there's books or novels that are incorporated in supplemental reading, and they're not parental approved. Parents don't like it. So they don't want their child to read that, and so they bring it to the principal, and they actually can get a pass and say, look, if you don't want your child reading it, that's fine, and they're held harmless on that. So this bill would have to be approved by the local LEAs, the principal or the local school board. And if there is bad supplemental, which there is, if that comes, to their scope, to their eyes, then they have the option to say we're not going to use that. And also, they have to make a link that would also say if this has been approved or not on the school's website.
I have a question for you, Cheerleader Weaver.
Yeah.
So what you're basically telling us is that this bill is going to make sure that all supplemental material at the local level that teachers are going to use would therefore be aligned to our Tennessee standards.
That's
Not
correct.
just necessarily Common Core to exclude that, but anything that doesn't align to our Tennessee standards would be excluded from being taught in our schools as supplemental material, correct?
That's correct.
And then what you're going to do is you're going to use this bill to create a database for the LEA so that when teachers need to have something as supplemental material to be able to draw from, they can already go to the website of the LEA and pull that information off that's already been scrubbed to make sure it aligns to our standards, so we don't get those worksheets sent home that don't align to our standards,
That's
correct?
correct. That's the whole mission statement, and thank you for clearing that up. Appreciate it.
Any other questions for the sponsor? On seeing none, you ready to vote? Without objection, all those in sending House Bill 1535 to full ed, say aye. Opposed, no. You're off to full ed. Thank you very much. Next up, House Bill 0837. Representative Sparks, you are recognized. Let me get there to join you real quick. Motion and a second. Just got the one untimely filed. Chairman Sparks, you have an untimely filed amendment on this bill?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Second motion. We have a first and a second on to consider. Is it 006259?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Let's go ahead and vote to see if we're going to consider this to be added to the bill. All those in say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. We will consider this. Need a motion to add 006259 to be considered now. Okay, let's add it to the bill and get it in the proper position. Does this make the bill?
Yes, sir, it does.
Thank you very much. All those in favor of adding Amendment 006259 to the bill, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. You are in the right position. Now, Representative, this is a 10-page amendment that was untimely filed.
Yes, sir.
Please work us through it and get us,
Yes.
so we understand what you're trying to do here.
Well, bear with me.
And we only do have 10 minutes. So.
Okay. Well, my county and many other counties across this state, we're really battling excessive growth, rapid growth, if you will. My county, and I know many others, can't continue to build schools at the rate that we're building. We just finished a $72 million high school. The next projected high school is going to be $108 million. My county commission, my school board, they're constantly asking for relief up here. They're always asking for help. I think this is a tool in the toolbox, if you will, Chairman. It's one tool. It would offer a relief valve to where we don't have to continue to build schools at the rate that we're building. My county taxpayers are asking for relief. And, you know, the growth that we're facing in Rutherford County, Williamson County, other counties across this state, Chairman, I'll argue it's unsustainable. And members, I'll argue it's totally unsustainable. Our forefathers, I would argue, were a lot more fiscally conservative than many of leaders that I see today. Not specifically you gentlemen here before us, but I look back at my World War II father and others that were mentors for me. Those men stood firm, and they stood firm when it come to cost, and they kind of held the ground, if you will, to be responsible when it comes to spending. But this bill really would put money back into the system. Our capital projects, I mean, we're at close to almost $500 million in capital projects to try to keep up. The maintenance on these schools are millions and millions of dollars. They're asking for relief. Y'all have heard it. Even in slow-growing counties, you've heard for relief. This piece of legislation returns 25% back into the school system. 75% would go with the child, would follow the child, sir.
Is that it?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
You've heard the presentation. Representative McKenzie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I didn't hear you say it. So you're saying that we use public dollars to go to private schools?
Yes, sir, to offer relief, yes, sir. And it's permissive to the counties if they choose so to opt in.
Chairman, go ahead. All right, Representative, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I'm going to slightly disagree with you in that post World War II there was a great generation that we call baby boomers.
Yes, sir.
And they were called that for a reason, and that the amount of children that we had, what they had at that time, getting into public education from a percentage standpoint, it outpaced Tennessee by leaps and bounds. And they did it conservatively, but they provided the brick and mortar and whatever it took to get those their children educated. So this just seems out of place. I look at the numbers and I just don't see, if people are moving in, they're moving into buildings, houses, apartments, and they're paying their property taxes and sales taxes. And we should, you have prognosticators and forecasters that project populations, and they should plan accordingly. And it sounds like you all are. I just don't see why we should be giving private schools monies and shirk our responsibility. And that is our responsibility as public education to give these private schools dollars. So again, I disagree that we're in unparalleled times. We pale in comparison to our predecessors in terms of what they had to do. You just have to belly up to the bar and do what we need to do to educate.
Yes. Well, I'll argue and we can get into affordable housing. That's a whole nother topic. But my county, if you go study, I just seen a house listed today, $320,000. My son had almost the same home 6 years ago. We sold it for $140,000. I bought my first home at 22 for $60,000. A young man today or a young couple can't even purchase a home. That's a whole nother crisis right there. So all the growth that we're facing in these fast-growing counties really isn't that much of a blessing. It's really hurting us back home. We just cannot keep up. And I mean, I have a list of the projects right here. Can I go through them, Chairman?
Briefly.
Okay, because they're lengthy. This is what our needs are in just Rutherford County. That's not counting other rapid growth counties. Rockville High School was $71.6 million. Rocky Fork Elementary, $36.6 million. Smyrna Laverne High School football stadiums, $3 million. Smyrna Middle School at Rutherford County, $49 million. Addition at Rock Springs, $11.4 million. Addition at Rockville, $11.4 million. Elementary school at Rutherford County, $40.4 million. Another middle school at Rutherford County North, $45.2 million. Addition at Laverne Middle, $17.7 million. Addition at Roy Waldron, $12.2 million. Elementary school, West Rutherford County, $45.1 million. Middle school in South Rutherford County, $45.3 million. Elementary school, with yet to be determined at the location, $45.1 million. And the latest projected high school, folks, is $108 million. $108 million. I mean, this, if anybody says this is sustainable, it's unsustainable, folks. And I'm going to argue we got a crisis. Now, this bill, my senator wanted me to carry it first because it could be deemed controversial. A lot of people don't like controversy, but when you're in a crisis, you got controversy before you. So what I'd like to do, if it's okay with the chairman, pending any other questions, is if we could get this to full committee for more discussion, and I have somebody that would come up and testify, and after the full committee, I would move it to summer study with the commission chairman's approval.
Hearing that request, we've tried not to operate that way in this committee. We've tried to make sure we get bills in the best position before they go to full committee. So we try to eliminate as much discussion and changes as there are. This is a major change to the bill that you had on an untimely filed amendment.
Yes, sir.
Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And for that reason, and I do think the sponsor made my point beautifully in that the prices of homes and the prices and the taxes that are recouped from going from $60,000 to $300,000 is able to do that. So I'd really like to make a motion to send this to Gen Sub.
Okay, you have a motion for Gen Sub. Is there a second? Seconded. All those in favor send this to General Sub, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. It is Gen Sub.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. At this time, I'm going to turn the gavel over to Chairman Moody.
Last but not least, we are on number 18 on your calendars, House Bill 1516 by Representative Sapicki. Chairman Sapicki. We have a motion and a second.
Madam
Is
Chair.
there
we're working off
amendment?
an amendment? Yes, ma'am. It's going to be Amendment 003089.
All right. Motion on the amendment, second.
Makes the bill.
Makes the bill. So all in favor of adding the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. All right, goes on the bill. You may explain the bill now.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Members, House Bill 1516 is a bill to make sure that there is a process in place that is lacking right now with the Department of Education in relationship to the Commissioner of Education invoking her rights or their rights to take over a school or a school system or remove a superintendent or board members. The process is very vague, and what 1516 does is it puts parameters in place that make sure that the Commissioner of Education has to follow certain protocols in the event of a school system gets in a position that is underperforming, not only currently, but historically, and not only academically, but operationally. And so what 1516 does is it sets forth a structure such as before the Commissioner of Education can act to move on a school system or a superintendent or a school board, they have to create a turnaround plan. And that turnaround plan has to be worked on by the LEA and has to be worked on by the Director of Schools and the Commissioner of Education to make sure that they're trying to get that school turned around with the maximum amount of help needed to make that happen. After a certain amount of time, if that does not happen at the discretion of the commissioner, then benchmarks, not only actively, currently, academically, and operationally, currently and historically come into play. So there are hurdles that the department has to overcome and able to invoke any type of removal of a superintendent, a school board, or a takeover of a district or a school. Trying to put some more safeguards in there to make sure that if and when it reaches the point that the state has to look into doing this, that there is quantifiable data before us that gives the commissioner the authority to do what they're going to do. That was a brief explanation. I'll try to answer questions if there's any. And that's it, Madam Chairman.
Thank you for that explanation. Do any of the members have a question for the sponsor? I can't see. All right. Sorry. Yes, Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You moved on me. I see your purse there, but yeah.
Sorry. Confusion.
Thank you. So, you know, as we look at this bill, there's a lot to it. Are you saying that we should take away the community's right to elect a school board member every 4 years and give it to there's no disrespect to the present commissioner, but to a bureaucrat? Is that what you're saying? And why would that make sense? And
Well, we're not.
Chairman.
Thank you. We're not plowing any new ground with this, Representative McKenzie. This already exists in code that gives the commissioner to do this. What we're trying to do is strengthen that to make sure that there are benchmarks and hurdles that have to be overcome first before that is used at the local level. That should be the nuclear option, so to speak. But right now, it's very vague and ambiguous as to what has to actually take place, and the thresholds there are not as high as the ones that we'd be putting in place right here.
Yes, Representative.
Thank you. You know, and I think it's vague because it is the nuclear option, right? And it should only be used in beyond dire. So, you know, in Section 2, there's language in there that talks about the fact that the commissioner can at any time determine that if an LEA has historically not met performance goals or measures and not met the responsibilities to one or more of these priority schools, then the department can assume all powers of governance. Is there a statute of limitation on what historically mean? Because, you know, I proudly represent a school that was on during President Bush's time, the No Child Left Behind, you know, got on that, and they got off of the priority school list, and we're proud of that. But if you have a sliding scale of what historical mean, then you're in an endless do loop. So is there a statute of limitation on what that historically means?
Yes, sir. There's
Chairman?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm used to being chairman, sorry. There is data already in place and parameters that dictate what a priority school is, how long they have to go, priority districts. What we're extrapolating that is able to make a decision of this nature that we're going to have to look at a historical data. How many years have they been a priority school? We know that most schools have 3 years to turn around that priority status. So there's one benchmark. You had other benchmarks with operationals. Are they managing their budget accordingly that the comptroller puts in place? So currently, most of those are not even there. It's more wide latitude.
Representative.
Thank you. You know, and also as we consider the whole, I see a representative that's going to get mad at me, but I'm going to throw this term out because everyone knows it and probably alone. There is no such thing as learning loss. I would say that you don't forget how to ride a bike, but. You know, the impacts of COVID-19 on our students, especially those in our under-resourced and community, this legislation at this time, okay, and let me be clear about this legislation at this time seems to be, you know, ill-conceived to grant takeover powers when we're just trying to get back to normal, when we just had an extraordinary session where we put some strong measures in place that we've not even taken one bit of data with how those are going to do. So to put this piece of legislation before us when there's nothing really from we have to admit, for the last year, and we're right at a year, it's been extremely difficult. So back to that historical point, where are you going to start your measurement from? Where are you going to take it to? This just seems to be very bad timing to introduce a bill like this.
Yes, Chairman.
Thank you. Once again, these parameters exist in a more loose fashion already with the department. I'm kind of confused here of why you're arguing against a bill that puts more safeguards in place for an LEA to prevent the department from coming down and taking over. It seems like you're arguing the other point that you want less restrictions to allow it to happen easier, because by supporting this bill, you're putting more benchmarks in place to protect an LEA from an arbitrary decision by the commissioner. Also, you know, you ask when and all that kind of stuff. We have to act on behalf of 1 million students in Tennessee. We have you all know the numbers: 37% literacy rate in 3rd grade, 28% in 8th grade. We have the highest graduation rate in the history of Tennessee, and we also have the highest remedial coursework in our colleges and university. We can keep kicking this can down the road, or we can start to get Tennessee going on the path to be #1. And if it comes down to a point that that historical data is used, priority schools, intervention, RTI, trying to work with putting more assets into these schools. Most of our school systems across the state for the next 2 years will see unprecedented amounts of revenue coming into their budgets to be spent to help our children. There reaches a point in time when We have to make a call on what's best for the students of Tennessee. Now, currently, that's a very low threshold. That's a very low threshold. This bill is going to raise the threshold to make sure that if we get to that position, we are at a serious nature with that local school system, and action needs to be taken. That's what the bill does.
Were there any other questions for the sponsor? We'll see. Oh, yes, Chairman Reagan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And to the sponsor, if I've heard you correctly, what you're saying essentially is what we're doing right now is not working, and you're proposing a change. So for the benefit of a brief summary, does your change materially change what we do right now? So can you expound on that?
Chairman?
I've always been wanting to ask this question. Can you ask a better question, please?
Certainly.
It was kind of vague there a little bit.
It was intentionally vague.
I know it was.
Madam Chair?
I think I have the answer.
Yes, Chairman
I
Reagan.
think I have the answer.
Yes.
What this does is it keeps the process in place as what we normally have, but it creates benchmarks and a higher level of scrutiny to make sure that when we do get to this decision of taking over a school system, which is very, very serious. This is not new in our country. This happens all over the United States, where states come in and take over school systems that are traditionally and historically failing our students. I'm here arguing for the students, folks. The students that are trapped in failing school systems. Most of our school systems are doing the best they can. We have to figure out a way to do better. But there are districts out there that are failing these kids year after year after year. And we've got to address that need moving forward. Hope that answers your question, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, I'm assuming we are ready to vote. Seeing no objection. So we are ready to vote on House Bill 1516 as amended. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Bill passes on to full.
That's a calendar, right? We're done. Committee, thank you. Thank you for hanging with us today and getting through this calendar. Thank you for your service to this committee. Look forward to seeing you at the full committee. Thank you for your service to Tennessee and its students. At this time, we're going to go ahead and close this committee at the call of the chair. You are adjourned.